If you're a parent and you're like me, you probably spend your weeks standing on the side of a pitch or watching various different practices for various different kids. But I want to know, how do you find a coach that is right for your child? So we got Alex Leslie, a pro tennis coach, to come in and tell us what we should be looking for when selecting a coach for our children. So Alex, tennis coach, explain to our audience why you are our guest expert.
So I've been playing the sport of tennis for 20 years, believe it or not, playing and coaching. I've been coaching professionally now for a number of years, and I've recently wrote a book on the subject called The Player's Box, where I analyse the top coaches in the world and the parallels that we can use in our day-to-day lives.
So you must have coached, hundreds of children and young athletes during this time?
That's right, yeah. I've coached from the age of 4 up to the ages of 55, 60. So, wide range of people, all different abilities. Got loads of experience in regards to that.
It must be interesting, because I've got kids myself, and they're all into different sports and stuff. And sometimes you just pick, what's the closest coach or the easiest coach for me? And I imagine there's a lot of parents that kind of make those mistakes, especially if they think their kid has got some natural talent in a certain sport. So what are some of the bad habits or things that people get wrong when it comes to selecting a coach for their kids?
Well, like you said, it can be easy to go to your local tennis club and be like, he'll do. That's fine. Yeah, he seems nice. But I think if you notice that your child has got a little bit of ability, I think it's worth going that little bit extra, putting that little bit extra work in to find a better coach who has a bit more experience, who can maybe take your child a little bit further. And some of the things that you want to look out for really are if there's a fine line between being too easy on a child, especially if they're 7, 8 or 9, and being a little bit firmer, because it's that firmness that will get them to that next level. It's not the nicey nice approach, which always is the right one to do.
It's funny though, because I've seen a lot of parents, especially like one of my son plays football. A lot of parents think that their kids are Ronaldo, when the reality is they're no better or worse than probably the majority of other kids at that stage. So it must be hard for them that are constantly giving praise to their kids to then look to a coach that might be a little bit firmer with the kid, or say, you've not done that right, or it's not correct.
Exactly. Well, if you look at the two, say, best players of the past 20 years, say Roger Federer and Rafa Nadal, they've had two completely different upbringings in regards to the coaching. So you've got Roger Federer, who came from absolute wealth, and all these coaches and his parents were always talking about how brilliant he was, and he would smash rackets, he would cry every time he got beat. And on the other hand, with Rafa Nadal, his uncle coached him, and he was the complete opposite. Even though Rafa was clearly the best tennis player at his club, he was made to feel like he was the worst player at his club. So it's that's maybe an extreme. But if you look at the two players, obviously now they're both professionals. They've been on the tour for years. They've both got a brilliant demeanour on court. But when they both first started out, Federer was still prone to smashing a racket. If he lost, he'd lose his temper. If you look at the history of Rafa Nadal, you won't find a video or any footage of him smashing a racket, swearing, anything like that, because he's just been brought up differently. So it's not to say it can make you a better player. It's just, I think, first of all, you want to make sure you're a good person on court and use tennis as a medium.
So what would your second bad habit be that a lot of people do when it comes to coaching with kids?
So it's quite a natural response, really. So if you've got a child who you believe is good at tennis, football, you'll want to naturally go to the coach who believes in that talent, who's like, this guy's brilliant, or this girl is brilliant, I can take him to the next level. But I think also you want to look at coaches who all don't agree with that, who might be like, they're good, but they're not the best player I've seen. Like, there's work to do. Somebody who doesn't blindly follow, your views on your son or daughter. Somebody who could have an ulterior opinion on that. Because like Abraham Lincoln did this beautifully. I think it was 1861. He became the president of the United States, and he assembled a team. It was called the Team of Rivals. So he basically assembled a team of people who had completely different views on his opinions. So when he was making a decision, it wasn't just 10 people saying, yeah, that's brilliant. He had 10 people saying, well, I don't know, could we do it like this? Could we do it like that? And it's the same with coaching.
But also, you want them to remain hungry, work hard, and you don't want to create an echo chamber. If you're surrounded by yes men, then you aren't going to be challenged. You aren't going to learn anything. You're not going to grow. In a strange way, it happens in boxing quite a lot. You see boxers that will have like a 20-0, then they lose, and you find out that there's problems in the camp where everyone's just said yes when they know there's fundamental flaws in their game. What about actual sessions? Because I've seen sessions in all different types of sport where I don't think it sort of moves the player on at all. It's just the same sort of 5 or 6 different routines. So is that an issue?
Well, there's many different ways to run a session. There's no sort of right or wrong answer. But what you often find is coaches will use structured and repeated drills continuously for an hour every 3 or 4 days. Say you have 3 or 4 sessions a week with your coach and it's the same structured drill. So a structured drill would be, okay, we're going to work on your forehand. I'm going to feed you 50 balls to your forehand. You're going to hit 50 forehands. That is monotonous. It's boring. And the mental effort that it takes is really low. When you come to a match, how often are you going to hit 50 forehands in a row? You're never going to hit 50 forehands in a row.
What would be your sort of good habits or advice if I was looking for a coach or I wanted to take up the sport?
So it's interesting you see Pete Sampras. There's actually a section dedicated to him
Pete.
on the book. Yeah, so he was really struggling. Pete Sampras is a great example. He was really struggling with his form, and he found a new coach in Tim Gullickson and immediately shortened his practice sessions. He used to have really structured drills with a coach called Joe Brandy where we'd do hours of ground strokes, forehands, backhands, and then his new coach was like, we never do that in a match. So he said, when we train, we're just going to play a match. That's all we're going to do. I'm going to find another professional and you're going to play a match against them. I'll work on your weakness whilst playing a match. So that's what my advice would be. Find somebody, when you've got your son or daughter to a certain level, try and find a coach who's going to be more match orientated and work on weaknesses whilst working in a coaching style
that'll probably benefit them in a game.
Exactly, yeah. Because then when they do come to play a match, I've not just been hitting 50 forehands in a row this past week in training. I've been playing matches and working on my forehand whilst in a point. Yeah. So just little things like that. I mean, there's, like I said, there is no one successful way to coach. Closed practice or structured drills do still work. It's not saying they don't work, because they do. But to elevate your play a little bit more, you've got to open it up a little bit more and make it a little bit less specific.
Good habit number 2?
Good habit number 2 would be take responsibility for your players' poor performance. A lot of parents are prone to this as well. Oh, you should have done this, you should have done that. Take responsibility for it yourself. That way it takes the pressure off the child.
Yeah.
So you
mean parents saying this to their kids, like making them the kid feel bad because they've lost?
No, the other way around. So it's okay to say, I know earlier I was talking about being firm.
Yeah.
But that's not to say you have to blame them for every time they played badly.
Yeah.
They should say, for example, don't let them make excuses for losing. Patrick Moratoglu, who's the coach of Serena Williams, he never blames his player for a defeat. He'll say, if his player loses, he'll say, okay, I asked her to go to the net a lot during a match and she didn't do that. Is that her fault or is that my fault? Did I not say it clear enough?
Yeah.
So, or did she not understand me? Do I need to be more clear in the future? So every time a player your player or daughter or whoever it is loses, that's your fault. As the coach, that's your fault. It's not their fault. It's your fault. So the final good habit that I would suggest to coaches or parents is don't inflate the ego of your child. Don't let them believe how good they are. Not to the point where you tell them they're rubbish and they hate the sport and they don't want to play anymore, but don't let them believe that they're brilliant. So if they do win a game, that's brilliant, but there's still work to do. They're never finished, they're never satisfied, because that way you squash the ego, and if you build up a player's ego and they lose a game, it can destroy their self-belief and confidence. So it's just about managing their expectations.
Yeah, I often use Ronaldo as an example of that with my little boy. I always say he works the hardest, he's never satisfied, and he's always hungry. So, and when I see that argument between Messi and Ronaldo and stuff, I would say Ronaldo's worked very hard to get where he is, and he probably wasn't as naturally gifted, but he's made up for that in his sort of like his effort, recognizing that he needs to work hard. And
his left foot's just as good as his right foot.
Yeah, and there's things that, like, a lot of people, if he was told he was amazing when he was a kid all the time, and he believed that, he might have thought, well, I don't need to work hard, I don't need to try hard and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Tony Nadal got it spot on for me. Every time Rafa won a tournament, he'd be like, oh, okay, that was good, but I noticed your backhand wasn't very good. I need to work on that tomorrow. And then Rafa, I guess it depends on the child, because Rafa was the type of person who thrived off that.
And if I was a parent here and I wanted my kids to get into tennis or be more active after lockdown finishes, where can we find out more about you?
So you can find me on Instagram at AlexProTennis, or you can find me on LinkedIn, and my name is Alex Leslie, Leslie.
Thanks very much, Alex.
Thank you very much for having me.